For many of us, the events of this past summer in Israel were deeply personal. We spoke of Gilad, Eyal, and Naftali as our boys, and those were not empty words. In every home in Israel and in every corner of the Jewish world, there was an acute sense of loss. Those boys touched us, and their tragic deaths united us. On my very first day as CEO of UJA Federation of New York on July 1, my first official act was speaking at a memorial service here in New York for the boys. I spoke then of my own two sons, who'd study in the yeshiva not far from the three boys. Both of my sons frequently hitchhiked, tramped from the exact spot as the three boys, and I have a daughter studying there now, less than a mile from the same location. As parents, first and foremost, we pray that our children will always remain safe. And in our shared grief this past summer, we were able to look beyond our differences and remember what it truly means to be united as a people. Our challenge today is to continue to harness that sense of unity, to honor the memories of Gilad, Eyal, and Naftali, and the values that guided them in life. The purpose of the Jerusalem Unity Prize, which was born out of tragedy, is to reinstill in our people a sense of ki ish echad b'lev echad, like one people with one heart, to promote acceptance and a sense of connection and connectedness with those in Israel and across the Jewish world who think, act, or live differently than ourselves. UJA Federation is privileged to join with the Mayor of Jerusalem, Nir Barkat, the families of the three boys, Gesher, and other supporters to make this Jerusalem Unity Prize a reality. It has long been a priority of ours to repair the fraying bonds of our community and to strengthen social cohesion in Israel and throughout the Jewish world. We're deeply honored to have with us this evening Mayor Barkat, Racheli Fraenkel, Naftali's mother, Ofir Shaer, Gilad's father, and the esteemed Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks. We're grateful, very grateful for your participation in this critically important event, every bit as necessary here as it is in Israel.
I knew that I couldn't watch on television or listen on the radio. There are times in your life you simply have to be present with your people. And so we joined tens of thousands of people crowded together, and it was a cross-section of the Jewish people. And yes, some were wearing kippot and tzitzit and scarves and skirts, but it was the full cross-section. And on that day, there was a sense that what held us together was so profound and so painful. There were many words spoken that day, no words of political rhetoric, only words of deep resonance about the most sacred purpose for which we were created. But I can't help but holding close to the eulogy, a phrase within the eulogy of Rabbi Dov Zinger, Dean of Yeshiva Makor Chaim in Kfar Etzion, where two of the teens had studied, and amidst his personal remembrances, and it was so moving because he knew these boys. He adapted a very familiar line to all of us. Two Jews, three opinions. He said, two Jews, three opinions, lev achad, one heart. So often we are fractured, splintered, divided people, so partisan about our politics, our observances, our Zionism. But we have been taught. We have been taught by three families who raised us all to a different level of how to understand and to live what it means to be a deeply interconnected Jewish family. The first chief rabbi of pre-state Israel was a towering man, 6 foot mashahu. He was very tall. Rav Kook included in his circle not just those who were observant in the way he was, but those who weren't observant at all. He saw a people. They were part of his obligation and his love. He set an example. It's been hard for almost anyone to follow that example, but I'll conclude my brief remarks tonight on behalf of all the sponsor organizations who are so honored and privileged to be here. The teaching comes from Rav Kook's Olat HaRayah, his commentary on the Siddur. He taught there are those who mistakenly think that world peace can only come when there's a unity of opinions and character traits. In truth, he taught, it's not so. Because true shalom is impossible without appreciating the value of the many pieces of the mosaic, which together make shalom. Rav Kook gave us a powerful framework in life and in his teaching, that our unity is not built on erasing our differences, but rather remembering always, especially with our disagreements and our debates, that we are part of something larger than Jewish interest groups or factions or denominations. We are a part of Am Yisrael.
I'd like to begin, if we may, by looking at the people behind the photographs. We've seen such moving images of your boys, but it's important for us also not to just turn them into empty symbols, but to understand who they were as people. So if you may, please, Racheli, let's start with you, as we agreed. Tell us about Naftali. Who was the son behind these beautiful photographs?
There was actually, to this day, when I walk in Israel, someone might stop me and say, "Haben shelach tzaddik, ha'yeladim itzilu et Am Yisrael." The children saved Am Yisrael because of the tunnels and things that derived from there. And for me, it feels really strange. He was my 16-year-old son, and he was very smart, cynical, a teenager, was with his sisters, into learning, into playing sports, music, and then so for me, he's mostly potential. He's everything we loved and everything we thought that will be. You promised us snow the other week, and I don't know what happened to your snow, but I thought I have 2 days off from work, so I let myself, dwell into things that I don't usually do, and I opened his drawer and I found this envelope. It said something from his bar mitzvah or a late present for his bar mitzvah, and I turned it over. It had a lot of money in it, and I turned it over, and it said "Maser ksafim sheli," my 10% for charity from my summer jobs, etc. And I was weeping to a friend on the phone, and he said, "You had this coming because you said he's not a tzaddik." And then we woke up and there was no snow in the morning. I had to pull myself together and go to work.
It snowed here instead.
That's right. Ofir, share some memories of Gilad with us.
Yeah, I'm a little exciting, so forgive me for my voice. As the only son that we have, because we have another 5 daughters, he had a special connection with each of them. And in every trips when we saw how we handle every of our daughters. We mentioned in the last 3 weeks that we, as we called it, celebrated his birthday, 17. He had a he liked to bake a cake with his mother. Every end of the week, he come into the kitchen, making a mess and leave it as this, and I have to clean after it. But the cakes he make was delicious, and for us, it's. I think even now, every Saturday is coming, or every Friday, difficult from this point of view. But Galin, for her, it was very difficult to come into the kitchen every time when she remembered. as Racheli told, they are only 16 years old, so there is combined of serious in his studies, but making many crazy things with his friends, he's fishing in his room and doing many things, hiking, like every boy in his age. And for now, it's kind of tzaddik, the word, it's a very big word. But from this point of view, I say, as Badgel also saying all the time, that you shouldn't be a kind of something special to be maybe a tzaddik or to be with a good rights. You should be on maybe just a boy with 16 years old that making his life and trying to make what he can do. That's it.
Can I say a word about Eyal?
Please.
Eyal's parents aren't here. Eyal was 2 years older than them. He was 18 going on 19. And he was a true giver, like Iris said in the movie. He was constantly looking to what's needed, what he can do, how he can better himself. And actually, he left a journal of amazing thoughts about what life is about, and it's really a legacy. And so they're lucky in that way.
Thank you for sharing that. Why did they decide to study at this yeshiva? And what were they hoping to gain from this?
Makor Chaim is a special place. It's a place that's profoundly religious, and also very, very open-minded and very empowering of the individual, and strives for excellence both in Torah study and in religious thought and connection and feeling, and some Hasidic effects there. Rav Steinsalz's place, and there's a lot of secular studies and a lot of options, and altogether Gush Etzion is a very special place. So a lot of music, a lot of happiness.
There was a developed year after year how we felt for the yeshiva. I can say that in the beginning he said to me, if I was there before, I wanted here, because he had time to discover what this place can suggest. And I think, as we told before, there was some potential that we felt in this year that we want very much that will be in this year that we're going to end the school. And I think that we have until now a very good connection with his friends, with friends of Naftali and friends of Gilad, and it's a kind of a connection that we can see Naftali and Gilad in the faces of their friends. Just for example, in the last 3 weeks ago, when he had his birthday, we invited 20 friends of him to our home, and it was very powerful Shabbat, not easy, and also for his friend, but it was kind of being with him all the Shabbat, to hear stories about him and to tell his friends about him. And I think it's something that will continue.
That's really beautiful. In a way, you were foreshadowing the unity that we're going to talk about in just a moment. So now I want to bring you to that very painful day, June 12th, when you found out that they were missing. And in the days after that, those painful 18 days until they were found, you've spoken about this sense of feeling never alone. Where did you get that feeling?
Maybe I will start on this day. It was exactly 8 months of today. It's about, now it's now 7 and 10 minutes past 7, and it was 9 o'clock when I called him and asked him what I'm going to do, and he said, I'm going to leave the school about 10 o'clock. I went home, preparing for Shabbat, cooking, cleaning. About 1 o'clock at night, my oldest daughter asked, where is Gilad? So I just called to his cell phone, and there was no answer. And for us, at this moment, it was a suspicious sign, because he was so responsible guy that every time when we called him, he was, we know where he is. Even we take, replace his batteries off, he took a phone of his friend and tell us. And so a few minutes later, Bat-Galim and I decided we are going to take our car and drive the way we thought he will be there. Meantime, our oldest daughter started to continue with his friends and trying to figure out where he is. After half an hour, she said that there is another guy, his friend, Naftali Fraenkel, that we didn't know before, also missing. She gave us his number and the number of Racheli and Avi. We tried to call them, both, also Naftali and also them, and there was no answer. It was another suspicion sign, so we decided we go to the police station on Modi'in. We came inside and we said, we're parents worried for our child, and we're not, it's not a child that's doing a strange thing. And when we told him that there are two guys that was missing, they're doing some technological things, that we find out that our cell phone were in Hebron, in a place, indirectly the place they should be there. And then we know that all the bells are rings at this moment. So we decided that Bat-Galim will back at home with the children. It was 6 in the morning that I went with Avi Fraenkel to the army, to the school, and decided what to do. And on afternoon, we decided we were going again back to our home to be with wife and children. And remember what I came inside, I saw Bat-Galim. I told her something better happened. We didn't know what happened exactly, but we decided that we had two options now in this moment, or to close the door and close the heart and just be our family, or to open the door of our home and open our heart. And I am thinking now, as I think before, that it was maybe our important decision we have had, because from this moment, on Friday, it was only our community that knew, and in the end of Shabbat, I think the whole Jewish nation know about it. And from now on, as you said, it was like a river of people and mails and letters and who come and ask and called us and trying to be with us. And I think until now it's still continue that we're feeling together. Saw people saying they know exactly where they knew when they heard the first time. And I said, yes, I felt you now, I felt you then, and I'm feeling you now, and the same.
Did you have that same feeling, Racheli?
Yeah, within days we had a sense of something going on, something beyond our anxiety and our search. We had phone calls literally from around the globe, you know, Australia, Kathmandu, Cape Town. I personally spoke to people. It was unbelievable, and it started out with our close family and community and people from all over Israel, and Jews and non-Jews from all over Israel, and then from the diaspora, there was something in the air. I remember approaching a relative of mine that's, you know, more a rationalist, and you know, he always he would ground me if I came over. I wanted to know, is there really something going on, or is this me just rationalizing the suffering of a mother? And he said, definitely, there's something going on. And people were, you know, just going out of themselves, trying to help, to show solidarity, to pull strings in parliament members, and sending us to Geneva. Or next week, if the children wouldn't have been found, we were supposed to meet with the Pope. And this is all Jews around the world doing what they can do, and gathering together in rallies, in prayer, in just general chesed, doing good deeds, in their merit, later in their memory. There was something unbelievable going on. Months later, we went for a few days abroad with the family, and we approached the person in the booth where they stamp the passports, and she usually has to keep a straight face because everyone goes through there, and they see she has this terrible cold, and Baruch Hashem, we came with a bunch of passports, and she goes, and as they come closer, I see that she has tears coming down her face, and they tell her, "You don't really have a cold, do you?" And she said, "I apologize. You lived in our house the whole summer." So that's the feeling. It's like, you people opened your homes and your hearts, and we know the pictures of boys were on your lawns and on the magnets on your refrigerators and in your prayer books, and it meant the world to us. It was in our hearts and in our homes, and it walked us through this. It was really unbelievable.
So, Mayor Barkat, you're not far away in Jerusalem, seeing all this unfold. How does it affect you as a public official?
Well, I think that what our enemies try to do is, by creating terror, to try and focus on our weakness as Jewish people with a deep heart. I believe they thought that by kidnapping and killing the young boys and other terror attacks is that they'll split us apart. And that is one of the biggest dangers we have. As mayor of Jerusalem, I was at the time quite busy with the challenges we have in Jerusalem and in other places. And all of a sudden you see the power coming from the unity of the three parents. The tragedy alone is a huge tragedy. But the way Ofir described that they decided to open their heart and to hug Israel in their pain and the Jewish people. I got to admit that it gave us, the Prime Minister, the Army, I as Mayor of Jerusalem, so much power dealing with the challenges we had. Mind you that we had a lot of unrest in the city of Jerusalem. Israel went to war. And if anything, that tragedy developed to become one of the most important things that happened to us in the last few decades, in my mind, which is that unity gave us so much power, and it gave us such a tremendous ability to face our enemies, and to I think the enemies got exactly the opposite of what they expected.
The mayor of Natzat said, if Hamas would know how this brought us together, they would have never done it.
They would have never done that. And they wouldn't. They should never do that, because they should recognize that we know how to unite. And that unity made a big, huge difference in the challenges Israel faces. So while it seems like we're remotely away, as Racheli said, I think we're all in their homes, or they were in our homes. And I think that that's something that we have to learn. How it's not what we do, it's how we do things, and how we decide to work together, and to really understand that when the Jewish people are together, we could do anything we would like to do. We could accomplish and overcome any obstacle through that unity, which is so important. And the way that the three parents performed, and the way they worked together, and the way they hugged us all, is outstanding. And this is something we want to institutionalize and remember that moment or that period quite well, which is actually what we're doing now.
So my understanding is the idea for this Unity Prize grew out of experience that you had when you were paying a Shiva call to the families. Tell us a little bit about
as
that.
mayor, I face challenges and conflicts. Rabbi Jacobs talked about that. We're very different from each other. The ultra-Orthodox, the secular, the national religious, right and left. We have it all. And you know what? It's good that we're like that. That's what makes us such a special people, the Jewish people. And I have these issues on the table every day, all day in the city of Jerusalem. However, when there's a unity feeling, it's a whole different ballgame. It's totally different. And when I went to meet the grieving families, it was clear to me that they've done something that very few people can accomplish. And I propose maybe we do something to memorize that feeling of unity. As mayor, I understand the importance of it. Jerusalem is a name that unites us all people here, from all different threads and all different beliefs as Jewish people. And so did they. Yeah. And so this is the value that we have to promote. And there's nobody that could do it better, in my mind, than the three pairs of parents. So the idea was right there and then when we met. I had never met them before. It was our first meeting, and in the Shiva, when I came and visited them, I proposed that maybe we do something like that. And the answer was yes, yes, yes. And so after we all got our act together, we sat together, and here we are.
So tell us more about what you're hoping to accomplish with this initiative from a public perspective in your role as a public official. But then I'm also really interested in hearing from the two of you, from Ofir and Racheli, about, as parents, what you're hoping this initiative will accomplish.
Maybe they'll start.
Over the last few months, we work at Leotzi Matok Me'az, taking the sweet out of the bitter. And there's a significant amount of bitter, but there's so much sweet surrounding it. And when we think of commemoration and in general of where we stand today, we really hope to keep the better part of the spirit of this last summer. In the eulogies, in two separate communities, actually one was in Talmud and one was in the general part, two very different people in their eulogy, Yair Lapid and Rav Dov Zinger, quoted the minhag to say before you daven in the morning, "Hareini mekabel al atzmi mitzvat aseh shel ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha." I accept upon myself the mitzvah of loving my neighbor as the translation exactly. And it was interesting how that came out in two separate eulogies on the way to this funeral. Rav Grossman, when we were sitting by the president in the beginning of this prize initiative, was saying this story about a person that was asking his father, why would we say before praying, why would we say "Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha," that I should love my brother, I should concentrate, I should have my focus on loving God before I pray. And he said, think of a family where the father looks upon his children, and what would he like them to say before they approach him? Would he like them to all say, "Oh, we love you, Father," or would he really like them to turn to each other and say, "Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha," as a stepping stone to praying? And wherever we want to go, and we are different. As the rabbi said, it's two Jews, three opinions. Three opinions is probably not, it's not a mutation of the Jewish people. It's who we are. We have different opinions. But the one heart on the basis of this all is essential. And after this summer, I'm convinced it's not an illusion. It's not this nice idea or cliche. It's really on the basis of who we are. And we just we would love to do anything that could promote it. I'll let them speak about the prize, the campaign, the educational work around it, but this is the sense of what we really want to work on.
First of all, as the mayor said, I remember the day and where I was sitting in the garden at our home when the mayor sit next to us and said, I must do something. He doesn't say exactly what he's going to do. And after the Shiva, with a phone call from him, let's have a meeting. So I must say that there are a lot of people who come to us on the Shiva, came and say many things, but he's one of the only that say and making things. So it's really something that we can feel it and can see it in every step we're doing from the beginning until now and for the future. Let's say this, and I'm saying against something that my wife Bat Galim also saying around the places she's speaking. We have a lot of pain. As the mayor said, it's a tragedy for us. And many people telling to the three families, you're strong, continue to be strong. And I must say you can't be strong against death. It's something very human that it's hard. Every morning it's a new day. Every time it's something you have to, from the beginning, to find the light that maybe you want to continue. And one of the things that in the 80 days was were very helpful for all of us, I think, was kind of a positive thoughts. It's not naive just to say it, but it's a hard work that every day we're doing it. We're trying to look for what we can do from the positive thoughts. And I think what's happening to us to handle those days, because today when I'm looking back, it's crazy to be with this question of 80 days and don't know what we're going to do. So I think this is the basic thing that we're feeling then and now, that again, the tragedy is very personal. And I think that if anyone here, again, think about to be a parent and what's going to be maybe chas v'chalila for his children, he stopped to think about it immediately. And of course, it's a human. But I think that if we're going to think about the positive things that we can do, as we said, we're not asking why, we're asking now for what. And from now on, for us, the idea of the mayor and what we're thinking and feeling every day, something that I think really to look forward and to trying to make something, of course, as a unity, as a great idea to continue. That on the Shiva came a guide of tourist and non-Jewish, and told us that after what was in the Kikar Rabin, Square of Rabin, and he told us the tourists come to him and say, now we understand why you call the chosen nation. Told us the Shiva, and we feeling it every day when we're saying all the stories that Racheli told you. It's just simple. I think both we have thousands of letters in our home from all over the world that showing the unity, the love, and the solidarity that now we're speaking about it.
So, Mayor Barkat, there's going to be an educational component to this effort. And I understand that the Federation here is going to be very supportive of that. Can you explain a little bit about what that's going to accomplish?
Well, generally the idea is, again, to demonstrate to people by example, by role models. The best way to educate people is to show them what the parents did, the way they performed, the way they think. Naturally understand that the three boys lived in such an environment, so they were a copy of their parents.
Okay.
And thank God, the Jewish people, there are other people that contribute in different ways to the unity of the Jewish people. And we want to elevate the idea, the concept, and together to every year to show a few examples that will enlighten and maybe intrigue people's imagination, the young generations, current people, of how important it is to focus on that common denominator. The people understood it at times of trouble. It's definitely true in times of challenges and trouble, but it's also true on day-to-day life. It's also true to get better, faster growth, faster results, better results, more valuable results for anything we want to do as people. For me in Jerusalem, it's extremely important that when we sit on the table, different people, we have a wide coalition in the city of Jerusalem, and we can get things done, and we focus on growth, and we don't focus on the differences between us. So by proposing role models, it's the best way to educate people of what we want to do. And so the process, we're at early stages of the process. Naturally, I'm sure there's some, there are a few meetings more we have to do. But the best way is to show role models, our heroes, more heroes, side by side to the parents. And we have an exceptionally wonderful board that represents ultra-Orthodox, secular, national religious, right and left. Look at the board that we've constructed around it. And I want to thank the President Rivlin that met, and he loved the idea, of course. He understands this as the citizen #1 of Israel, and he's going to host the prize at his home, which I think gives it another very important dimension. So it's about education by role models, and we've decided that that's the best way, and we're going to do it naturally on next day to the day or the next day. What did we decide eventually? Whatever we decide, right? To the conjunction of the Memorial Day and the prize giving. So I believe that through doing that, we'll promote the value, and that's the best way to educate the public.
So we've gotten a number of questions. Thank you very much. Somebody asked, what are some of the practical initiatives that will be set into motion in order to promote this unity across the Jewish spectrum?
So basically, the prize itself is supposed to acknowledge existing initiatives and over time encourage people to think in that way of connections and working together and starting projects in Israel and in the diaspora that promote Jewish unity. There's a campaign around it that is also a significant part of it. For instance, now we're going into an election period in Israel, and everything's very sensitive. And part of the campaign is how do we have machloket with how do we dispute with full respect and love, etc., etc. And around the prize itself, there's a convention that relates to many topics of, we don't want this to stay a cliche. We want to speak about the real thing. And there is the Unity Day, both in Israel and hopefully in Jewish communities around the world, that will be a day devoted to putting this on the table, how important this is to us, what it means to us, and in what way do I personally and every person as part of a community or in general promote connections with Jews that might not look exactly like him.
Thank you. Racheli, there are actually a couple of cards here directly addressed to you. So one said, the moment when you said Kaddish for your son publicly was a pivotal moment for women in Jewish history. Was this something that you thought about? And what is the significance for our future?
It's interesting. About a month ago, I spoke somewhere, and somebody said, the discussion on the Shabbos table and the week of the Shiva by us was since this mourning, the Avelut, it belongs to Klal Israel, was it legitimate for her to do something that wasn't necessarily accepted by all Israel? Maybe it should have been, more a common denominator thing. And because we all felt part of that funeral, how could she choose to do something that's not generally accepted? So it was a very private moment. I had it wasn't out of naivety. It was just standing in front.
You've studied these issues.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say is this was no protest or public act. This was a private act, a religious act. And I had about a split second to decide what to do when my husband and son were called for Kaddish. I have been giving this shiur for 12 years about Nashim and Kaddish. So the halachic issue for me is non-existent, but saying that was a pivotal moment. At this point, it's not a surprise to me, but it wasn't planned. So we are who we are, and we've had a lot of siyata dishmaya, a lot of help, divine help, and help from people through this. And if during the war we went through in the summer, there were some women that found the way to connect to the Jewish part of their mourning through joining in Kaddish, which in America is quite accepted, but in Israel was not accepted. So that's my, so there's some sachal there, but it was not planned.
No, thank you. Someone else wanted to know, to all of you, what do you think are the greatest obstacles to Jewish unity?
I'll tell you one thing which is interesting. Now we're going into elections. In elections, every party, in Hebrew it's called miflaga, right? And the root of miflaga is pilug, which is how you divide. When you talk about who's going to be the leader of Israel and the leader of the parties, they focus on how they differentiate from each other and why they're better than others and why others are not necessarily good. And the whole philosophy of elections is creating parties, which in instinct is exactly the opposite of what we need, because that's exactly the opposite of unity. And sometimes as mayor, I focus on different parties that focus on a small segment. And sometimes people talk about their constituency, which is fine. But the biggest challenge we have is to, even if you get elected to represent a specific segment of the population, how do you rise above it to the unity, to the need to work together, to split the budget together, to better understand people different than you? And in elections, this is something that could stamp people's thought, that it's about how we differ and how we beat the other party. And the challenge is after the elections, how do you really rise above the noise level and above the partisan approach of the parliament for unity? In Jerusalem, if we're not united, we lose. If you're united, we all win. It's very, very simple. And you have to rise above it. So I think one of the biggest challenges and threats we have is that partisan thinking.
I think what could be considered an obstacle is also our greatest advantage. We're very passionate people, all of us. And so we know how to make machloket, but it's also our greatest advantage. We're there full-heartedly.
Well, thank you. I think the idea of promoting unity without expecting uniformity is really an important phrase. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Unfortunately, our time to talk with these wonderful people is coming to an end. Please join me in thanking Ofir and Racheli and Nir Barkat.
Kvod HaRabbanim, Kvod Rosh Ha'ir, beloved friends. I think I just want to say on behalf of all of us, what an immense privilege it has been to be part of this extraordinary evening with its just overwhelmingly beautiful mood. And therefore I want to first thank UJA, not only for this evening, but for all it does and it continues to do, to bring Jews of all kinds together, to work together, and to provide that canopy under which we all take shelter. So to you, Eric, and to all who work with you and for you, we thank you for this evening and for your extraordinary work. I want to say thank you to Gesher and to its leader, Rabbi Yoni Sherazin, that does the most extraordinary things in bringing Jews together in Israel. I have to tell you, I have to pinch myself every time I do a session with Gesher that I'm actually sitting in a room with Chilonim and Charedim together, each of them respecting and listening to the other. Because the good news about the Jewish people is that we're among the world's best speakers. The bad news is we're probably the world's worst listeners. And yet in Gesher, people do listen to one another. And I just feel the Shekhinah whenever I go into Gesher, and I see these people so different, and yet so clearly open to one another, and lifted by one another. I want to pay tribute to Ofir Shaer, the Mayor of Jerusalem Nir Barkat, on the phrase in Psalms, Yerushalayim habnuya ki'ir shechubra la yachdav, Jerusalem rebuilt as a city united together. Chazal said Jerusalem is Ir she'oseh kol Yisrael chaverim, the city that makes all Jews friends, because the Jewish people is the circumference of a circle at whose center is Yerushalayim. And so Jerusalem is our living symbol of unity. But above all, to the parents, to Racheli and to Ofir, and this extraordinary courage and chen that you have shown. Ezehu Gibor, who is a real hero, one who is able to bring a little light to bear on the darkness of this world, who is able to respond to an act of hate with love, who is able somehow to rescue a bracha from a klala. That is heroism. And that is an inspiration to every single one of us. I'm here playing away, as an Englishman in New York. This is a double galut. But I remember the first time I came here, over 40 years ago, when I was a young student, undergraduate at university. And I had the privilege of meeting a very great man, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who reached out to me in a most extraordinary way, and to everyone. And I remember thinking then, how come this man did what no Jew has ever done? I mean, we never had an outreach campaign before. There was a little one by Moses of Coucy the Smug in the 13th century in France, but nothing. I mean, nobody ever did it before. Why did it have to wait until now for somebody like the Lubavitcher Rebbe? And I once just hazarded this speculation, that here was a man who lived through the Shoah, who saw the destruction of all the heartlands of Chabad, of Hasidic life, traditional Jewish life. And he was a mystic. He believed in tikkun. And how do you do tikkun for an act of pure evil like that? And it suddenly occurred to me that just as the Nazis hunted down every Jew in hate, he said, our tikkun will be to search out every Jew in love. And you, both of you, are part of a tikkun, not less than that, and we salute you. Friends, if you look at Jewish history, you find something extraordinary. The Jewish people was assaulted by some of the greatest empires the world has ever known. Egypt of the pharaohs, Assyria, Babylon, the Alexandrian Empire, the Roman Empire, the medieval empires of Christianity and Islam, all the way through to the two great forces of the 20th century, Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. Every one of them tried in some way to attack either Jews or Judaism. And every one of them the superpower of its day, has been consigned to history. And our tiny, vulnerable people can still stand and say, Am Yisrael Chai, the Jewish people lives. And yet 3 times in history, our people went into exile. Once in the days of Joseph and his brothers, a second time after the destruction of the first temple, a third time after the Roman destruction of Jerusalem. And all 3 times for the same reason. The reason that the Torah says about Joseph and his brothers. Vayisnu oto, they hated him. Lo yachlu dabro l'shalom. They could not live and speak peaceably with him. And that is what happened in the days of Joseph. In the days of Beit Rishon, after a mere 3 kings of Israel, the kingdom split in 2, and as in deference to where we are, Abraham Lincoln said, a house divided in itself cannot stand. And then in the Beit Sheni period, if you read Josephus, you see there were times when the Jews inside Jerusalem were more intent on fighting one another than the enemy outside. This means there is only one people on earth capable of threatening the future of the Jewish people, and it is the Jewish people. If we are united, no power on earth can prevail over us. You know, there was once a time, Suda Shlishit, the Hasidim are sitting with the Rebbe at a tish, and one of the Hasidim asked the Rebbe, you know, we waited so long, why doesn't the Mashiach come? And the Rebbe looks at the Hasid and says, tell me, Yingele, how could the Mashiach come? Because if the Mashiach is a Chabadnik, the Satmaras won't recognize him. If it's a Chassid, the Misnagdim won't recognize him. If it's Orthodox, the Progressives won't recognize him. And if it's religious, the Chilonim won't recognize him. So how could the Mashiach come? And then he looks at this young man and says, you think we are waiting for the Mashiach. Actually, the Mashiach is waiting for us. And the time has come. And the time is now. The Torah dates our birth as a people to 2 different dates. On one view, we were born as a people, Vayhi Sham Lagoy, we became a nation in Egypt. Another verse says, and we're going to read it this Shabbat, that we became a nation on Sinai. That is when we accepted our mission statement to be Vatem tiyu li mamlechet kohanim v'goy kadosh. What is the difference? The difference is a unity of fate or a unity of faith. In Egypt, because we all suffered together under Mitzrayim, we came together as an a community of fate, of Goral. At Har Sinai, we became a community of faith. Our people saw HaKadosh Baruch Hu, heard him with their ears, and we became not just an but an Eidah. That dual nature of Jewish peoplehood saved us. Why? Because there were times in history when we didn't share, when we didn't share a fate. You know, 11th century, the 11th century, when Spanish Jewry is experiencing its golden age, the Jews of Northern Europe were being massacred in the Crusades. In the 15th century, Lahefach, when Spanish Jewry was being expelled, the Jews of Poland were enjoying their bright summer of tolerance. So when fate divided us, faith united us. Today, we don't necessarily agree on faith. I once, to emphasize Jewish unity, did a big public conversation with the guy that I think of as Admor Shel Chilonim, the Rebbe of the secularists, Amos Oz, the Israeli writer. And the first sentence he said was, I don't think I'm going to agree with Rabbi Sacks on everything, but then on most things, I don't agree with myself. So when we don't have a unity of faith, we are held together by unity of fate. And today, Rabbana Shalom, we are not short of enemies. And we all share the same fate. Because no Sonei Israel, no terrorist, ever asked, tell me you're a modern Orthodox Jew or a Reform. They don't. We share the same fate, and that is inextinguishable. And therefore, wherever we're divided, we find somehow there is a source of unity. Of course, that unity is never never uniformity, it's always diversity. I once pointed out that Judaism is the only civilization known to history, all of whose canonical texts are anthologies of arguments. In Tanakh, Avram argues with God, Moshe Rabbeinu argues with Eov, Yirmiyahu. The Mishnah, Rabbi X says this, Rabbi Y says that. In the Midrash, Shivim Panim La Torah. That is it. I think God chose us because he loves a good argument. But the truth is, we don't need uniformity. We need unity. There's an incredible bracha, I don't know if you ever thought how strange it is, that we make after having a cup of coffee, a glass of water. It's an extraordinary blessing. We thank God for making many different kinds of people and their deficiencies. Now, this is the only place in the whole of Judaism where we thank God for making us deficient. How come? The answer is, if we had no deficiencies, if we had no chesronot, if we lacked nothing, we'd never need one another. But because we all lack something, and because we're all different, what I lack, you have, and what you lack, I have. And the bracha, Borena Fashod Rabot V'Chesronam, is a bracha of coming together in our diversity to form a unity. To put it very bluntly, that unity of caring for one another is all we aspire to and all we need. Judaism is a choral symphony scored for many voices. We may not be one denomination, one opinion, or one party, but we are and always will be one people. The smallest, most diverse people on the face of the earth, and our diversity is our richness. Friends, let us reach out a hand to one another. The Hebrew word for hand, yad, is Gematria 14. When we walk hand in hand, that is 28, which is Gematria Koach. When Jews walk hand in hand, we are the greatest force for good in the world. Therefore, in the merit of Eyal and Gilad and Naftali, Zichronam Libracha, let us walk hand in hand to the future, because when there is peace between us, then maybe we will be at peace with the world. Bimhera, biyamenu. Amen.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS, the Jewish Broadcasting Service, with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more, to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media. Simply visit the JBS homepage and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check made out to GEM, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.